Chapter 5. Now.
You need to get ready.
The man in black appeared from around a corner, arms crossed.
Because the girl doesn't have much time left.
Mr. Blue jumped. I say you! The stranger in black finished. His hair was salt and pepper, and disheveled. His face was unshaven. By all accounts, it would appear he couldn't care less about his appearances were not for the suit. The perfect black suit. Immaculately tailored, form-fitting, never a speck of dirt, or crease, or wrinkle. Saber looked at him with a curious expression. Bit of a warning next time. Thank you very much. Mr. Blue tried to cover up his very obvious jump by straightening his cobalt tie. The man in black ignored him, strolling closer.
We can capture the marquee, and Valentine's quantum echo foothold on this temporal focal point. We can contain the paradox energy. We can even reverse it. Bring the entire solar system back to the nexus point level.
He was looming, dramatic. Which is fantastic news, Mr. Blue beamed.
What we can't do,
the tall stranger continued, as if rudely interrupted,
is let you screw this up. Jade has to leave this plane of existence.
Saber shook her head. He still thinks there's another way.
There isn't.
The man in black sighed, rubbing the back of his neck absently. Mr. Blue's eyes widened and narrowed furiously. I'm not sacrificing Jade, he shouted. His voice echoed through the catacombs of the mansion of Chateau de Bellevue as he stormed to the old man in a fancy black suit, staring up at him angrily.
You're an idiot.
The man in black peered down at the scrappy blue pseudo-albino. Saber stepped between them, easily pushing them at arm's length apart. Ladies, you're both petty. She placed one hand on her hip, the other on the hilt of her katana. I don't have all the time in the universe either. Savvy? They turned from each other. The stranger in the perfect suit leaned backward against a black obelisk, which hadn't been there a split second earlier.
Different now, isn't it? Feeling the weight of time itself on your shoulders?
Mr. Blue leered at him. Oi, I get it, but there's got to be another way. You said yourself that you and The man in black laughed, unnecessarily loudly, brashly, intentionally and rudely interrupting him.
God, don't be so naive.
Saber snapped. Stop antagonizing him. That is not helping. We need a clear resolve to deal with this situation, because we only have one window of opportunity left. The vicious barbs, witty as they may be, are ineffectual. You are Time Lords, for God's sake. Get your shit together. Mr. Black ran his fingers through his gray hair, then drug his hands down his worn, handsome face. Mr. Blue sighed, exasperated. He intertwined his fingers on top of his head as he paced in a circle. Saber's vortex manipulator beeped several times. She looked at her wrist. Oh, damn it, Jack. Then beeped up at the two time travelers. I have something. You boys play nice. You have a few weeks. I suggest you use them wisely. A blur of brilliant cyclonic light enveloped her. With a brief rush of air, Saber was gone, leaving the odd pair in the quiet, dusty catacombs of the mansion, staring at each other in silence. Then, Unchange your bloody clothes! Mr. Blue shouted as he ran over the fields. He knew Jade had heard him. Hoped she'd heard him. Well, she was clever, that one. She'd figure out how to blend in. Being drawn somewhere, that was a draw he could feel. Mr. Blue sniffed the air. Smelled vastly advanced technology. Time technology. Severe chronal anachronicity, passing a forest line. He was strolling directly into a grove of trees, an almost perfectly formed circle of old oaks. Mr. Blue scratched his bright blonde goatee. His brain performed advanced calculations as he absently stared at the ground, not paying attention to the ancient black obelisk. His forehead would regret this lack of attention as it slammed into the old stone monument. Gah! Mr. Blue looked up, eyes wide. He spun, peering around the woods. He squinted. A woman in a sleek black suit appeared from within the obelisk. She typed something on her watch. Right on time. Am I? Mr. Blue seemed pleasantly surprised. Are you the big bad then? Nice sword. That was rather easy, wasn't it? Don't know what the doctor was bitching about so much. She grabbed his collar. Now just a moment. She yanked him inside the black Egyptian stone monolith. Mr. Blue stumbled into a stark, immense, sparkly lit, yet tasteful museum, a modern Egyptian artifact exhibit of some kind. Yes, thank you. He politely, but firmly swatted her hand away.
Capacitor.
A gravelly voice echoed from the other side of the giant museum. Mr. Blue grinned. No one's called me that since the Time Lord Academy.
You never went to the academy,
came the answer. Mr. Blue looked over the tall, attractive time agent. She stared straight ahead, silent. Footfalls echoed as the stranger's voice came closer.
You hijacked 2 courses at the Patrix chapter of Time Lord Citadel in order to secure your spot at the head of the Temporal Engineer School. You wanted to grow TARDISes.
Time capsules, thank you very much, Mr. Blue corrected. The low voice continued, closing in.
You should have been kicked out, but your betrothal to Lad Lord Adamich Aravok, distant niece of Roman Advortat Lunder the Eighth, swept the nugget of cheat right under the old Time Lord rug.
Mr. Blue wasn't grinning anymore. Oh, you know that, then. He wasn't nervous, never afraid. He only got angry. Fear only ever quickly turned into rage. No one threatens me. No one. The echoing clap of Italian leather shoes slowed as a tall, weathered, and graying, yet distinguished man in a perfect black suit emerged from the darkened shadows right next to him. Mr. Blue cocked his head to the side, slowly facing him.
Capacitor was the nickname Latora gave to you after you screwed up the translator matrix. She thought it was hilarious, turning perfect into Purgect, or Purge, as she liked to call her.
Don't forget about Back to the Future, Saber half smiled. I was there. Mr. Blue snapped at the 2 strangers in black. I don't know who you are, or how you know so much about me, but I'll find a way to restore everything. I am a guardian of eternity. I can fix every paradox that led to my miscalculation of Nexus Point Earth. I am a Time Lord. I walk it!
Yeah, eternity. I know.
The stranger in black waved the thought away dismissively as he directly addressed Mr. Blue.
You will restore everything, and we are going to help.
He pointed at the severe, yet reassuring time agent.
Saber,
he announced. Saber nodded slightly, seeming bored, as if she'd done this before, or already knew how it worked. Good then. Quite. Mr. Blue appeared relieved. Your time capsule is quite advanced. Ha! Saber laughed a bit loudly. But my question is, how? He finished with a perplexed look. The stranger in black lowered his chin to his chest as he contemplatively peered around the exhibit, thinking.
I'm going to do what I always do. Cheat.
He walked to the hieroglyphic wall, began pressing symbols that lit up pale white luminescence when activated. A timeline emerged in static gray and white, which showed Traveler finding Jade at the graveyard in Illinois in 1997. The man in black pointed.
Here, at the beginning.
Mr. Blue remembered Valentine's presence. Though not a Time Lord then, he put together what happened in that cemetery. The first of Valentine's progeny wrathful angels, grabbing and gripping blindly for a powerful time sensitive to establish a connection in reality from absolute non-existence.
A paradox. Yeah, we've established that too.
The stranger in black suddenly spun to face Mr. Blue. Did you just read my mind? Mr. Blue accused the dark, impatient, gray-haired lank. Mr. Black ignored him and continued as Saber stood smiling.
We keep this moment from happening. Valentine can't get a foothold. Jade isn't sucked into all this, and the temporal nexus point reverts to neutral. where it's trying to get to right now.
What happens to Jade? Mr. Blue demanded. Absolute silence. Deafening quiet. The stranger in black looked away, uncomfortably, in pain.
Don't make me ask again.
Mr. Black exhaled loudly, rubbing his eyes.
She gets the happy ending. She gets a normal life. What she needed in the first place, before she became involved in all of this.
He quietly waved his hand.
Chaos.
And it's like nothing ever happened for her. Her temporal abilities aren't activated. Valentine can't close in. Cannot gain a foothold in reality to take over the nexus point. Mr. Blue quietly concluded.
Time survives.
The stranger in black stooped, crossing his arms and legs as he slowly leaned against an ancient piece depicting Khonsu.
As it must.
That is unacceptable, Mr. Blue stated flatly. Saber straightened and faced him. The stranger in black didn't move nor shift, just peered up at him with very dark and extremely old eyes.
Excuse me?
I can't just go on like nothing happened. Neither could she. Not even if she wanted to. We've become connected. Burgess touched her. The Vortex touched her. Time itself tapped her as a champion. You could make her an agent. The man in the black suit stood and turned away, shaking his head.
No, it's already done. This is the only way that this can work, and we only have one shot at this.
Mr. Blue bolted at him, grabbed him, and spun him around. He grabbed the fancy designer black lapels, got right in the stranger's face. I'll fight for her if I have to. There's a way out of this. She should be with me. The stranger in black was still for a moment, then blinked.
This is for the best. Trust me.
I don't believe you. How would you possibly know that? Mr. Black suddenly lifted Mr. Blue with an iron grip by the throat, high into the air, then ruthlessly slammed him into the hard marble floor, cracking it with Mr. Blue's dense Time Lord skull.
Jade's powers are sapping her. She's a time sensitive, so that means traveling in Purge advances the condition. She woke up one day and realized that she was 50.
Mr. Blue couldn't seem to find a voice despite his bypass respiratory system. Couldn't seem to make a noise. His eyes were wrenched shut in focus, trying to claw free.
Look at me,
Mr. Black roared, echoing through the museum. Mr. Blue opened his eyes.
She woke up, and she was old, and she hated me for it. She said I had stolen the best years of her life.
The stranger in black relented, stood straight up, looked down on Mr. Blue, sadly, angrily.
And she was right.
Saber looked down at the floor, folding her arms silently. Mr. Blue sat up, rubbing his neck. He blinked and slowly rose, pushing away Saber when she tried to help. It's just not right. The man in the black suit looked behind his shoulder, back at Mr. Blue.
You're the lucky one. You don't get to really be with her when she rises, when she comes into her own, when she...
He absently rubbed his eyes and let out a sad breath.
You didn't travel with her for years. You won't have to bear the burden of those memories. I will. That's not what's right here. You don't even know her. She's just a baby. You don't get to see her becoming something.
His eyes faintly glinted. As he very clearly and very warmly recalled.
I suppose she'll become something remarkable either way. Tragedy is, I will have the memories of seeing that precious miracle occur. You'll never have to suffer that kind of pain.
Saber shook her head at him. It's only pain if you view it that way. Mr. Black didn't acknowledge this, simply pointed at an artifact, which began glowing.
Enough! This has to be done. Mr. Blue, there are going to be some disappearances, murders, over the next few months.
And I have to stand by?
Yes, let it happen. I see your disapproval without looking. I know. I'm the big bad man that has to make the hard decisions that no one else will. Deal with it. You want your mistake corrected? Earth has to come back, and this is the only way to do it. Shut up. I am here to help.
Mr. Blue said nothing. The stranger in black lowered his voice.
You'll need to prepare for this. Do not screw it up. For now, be scarce. Jade has to be seen by herself. Has to be enmeshed in the culture to grab the attention of the Marquis. She's absolutely soaking in temporal energy. She'll be the prime target eventually. The Marquis will pick off the other duchesses and wealthy retinue to gain power. Then, attempt a massive feast on Jade to gain enough power in 1767 France through her familiar timeline to rupture his way back here.
Again, Saber finished.
Yes, again. Thank you very much.
The stranger in black smiled, ever so falsely. Eyes, daggers. So, Mr. Blue placed his hands in his pockets as he slowly walked toward the opening stone slab. Just to be sure I got this, we are going to use Jade as bait. Then, if that's not enough, if everything goes absolutely swimmingly, the best case scenario is that she's gone for good. She would never known me at all, to be precise. All this because I blew up the solar system due to the fact that I was never supposed to be doing this in the first place. The only human I've met, cared for, and I'm a total failure. Mr. Black regarded him as he stepped outside into the light, not waiting for a response. He provided one anyway.
You're a Time Lord now, big boy. Get used to it.